Someone once told me that making a good career decision is simple. You just write down the pros and cons, you trust your gut, and you go. That person has never been 43, caring for kids, looking after aging parents, in a job that was being eaten alive, wondering if their mortgage is going to be paid this month. Pros and cons, sure. Let me jot that down in my daily journal I fill in at 4:30 a.m. when I'm having my green smoothie with my existential crisis. Today, I want to talk about how we actually make good career decisions. We're not going to cover what the coaches say on LinkedIn. We're not going to think about what they say in the Harvard Business Review when they studied people who are nothing like us. If you've clicked on this video, you're probably right in the middle of this, where you're feeling that this career decision making is torturous. And why is that? Because your brain is actually assessing the neurological threat. Your nervous system can't actually tell a difference between I need to update my LinkedIn profile and I'm being chased by something with teeth. So when you're sitting there trying to decide whether to go freelance or take the safe job or retrain entirely, your brain is actually processing the risk. And you're feeling scared because your brain is trying to protect you. It's trying to slow down the process, get you to think, and in some cases, stop you from actually acting and moving forward. So that's why it feels hard. It's not because you're bad at making decisions, but it's because the situation is challenging that you're in, particularly if you're having to make these decisions under time pressure, where you are feeling like your brain is in lizard mode. Your brain is finding it difficult to stop and think of the options that you have, of the help that you can access, of the networks and people surrounding you that are supporting you and can support you to make that next move. The first thing that helps is knowing this. You don't need a better framework yet. You need to bring your nervous system down. And that might look like a walk, a conversation with someone, and it might be writing down that fear on paper so it's not stuck in your head looping around on repeat. So once we've brought down the nervous system to that calmer state, that's where good decision making can become possible. Here are the 3 questions that are really important in a career change. Not 10, not a downloadable workbook, 3 questions, because if you can't hold that decision making framework in your head, you probably won't use it when you need it. So let's make it easy for you. Question 1, what would you do if you already knew you couldn't fail financially? Not what would I do if I had unlimited money? That's just fantasy world. It's what if the financial floor was good for a couple of years? What becomes possible in your mind? What feels obvious? Most of us are making career decisions with money as the decision maker, and it's easy when mortgages are so expensive and cost of living has risen so sharply in the last few years. But when you separate what do you want from how do you afford it, you suddenly have 2 potentially different solvable problems instead of that sort of one tangled one altogether. But before we get to question 2, there's something important about hard choices that philosopher Ruth Chang argues. She underlines why making career decisions or any decisions can actually be really hard. She says that sometimes there isn't a right answer. Sometimes 2 options are actually genuinely on par. One gives you things the other doesn't. The other gives you things the first one can't. One might give you security and status. The other might give you autonomy and meaning. One protects the life that you've built, and the other one opens up your life to a life you haven't lived yet. You can add up the pros and cons until the cows come home, and you still won't get to a winner. And this is where I think a lot of career advice accidentally makes things worse. It assumes that if you gather enough information, you analyze enough, you've got the data, and you think hard enough, the correct answer will eventually reveal itself. Sometimes the choice is hard because there is no best or better option. And that's not because you are bad at making decisions. It's the nature of the decision. Ruth Chang's argument is that when the reasons don't tell us which way to go, we've got to do something else. We have to put ourselves behind an option and create reasons for it. We don't just ask which one is better. We ask, who am I willing to become? Question 2 is what I'm moving towards, not moving away from. Desperation decisions and desire decisions can look the same from the outside, but one is moving away and the other one is moving towards. If you can only describe what you're leaving, the toxic manager, the dead-end ceiling, the industry that AI is hollowing out, and you don't have a direction yet, all you have is an exit. And exits are valid, and sometimes you really need to leave. But at the same time, it's not a destination. So ask, what type of person am I willing to become through this choice? Not just what I want to leave, not just what I want to have, not just what job sounds interesting. Because this is what we often miss. A career decision isn't choosing your next job. It's choosing, at least for a while, which version of your life you're going to put your weight behind. So question 3 is, what does the decision make possible and what does it make impossible? So we tend to evaluate options in isolation, but every career decision closes some doors while opening others. You can't hold every option forever. And actually, that's fine, because if 2 options are genuinely on par, you don't need to torture yourself trying to prove that one is objectively superior than the other. You need to decide what you're willing to commit to. If I take this path, what becomes possible that wasn't possible before? What do I have to let go of? And perhaps the more important question, can I put myself behind this choice? Not, can I prove it's the right choice? Now, these questions are made within a context. You have a life, you might have children, aging parents. There might be a lot of things going on that you do in your spare time that a career fits within, and it's not your life fitting into your career. And understanding that sort of full horizon picture of what's important to you is the context you need to make a good career decision. Ruth Chang says a hard choice isn't necessarily a problem you failed to solve. Sometimes it creates that space where you get to author your own life. So the lesson of the hard choices, reflect on what you can put your agency behind, on what you can be standing for. Through hard choices, become that person. So if you've had to put yourself behind a hard choice, the people I know who've made the best career changes, most of them didn't leap. They sort of crept, commando crawled. They deliberately walked with their eyes open into an option and put their weight behind it. Yes, there might have been hesitation. That's the opportunity where there was a gap between where they thought they could challenge themselves and where they were currently. And that suited them in that role because they were ambitiously trying to get to that next challenge. But for other people, jobs serve different purposes. So understanding what the purpose of you applying for this role is part of that decision-making criteria for you. Thinking about the smallest possible test is really key. You've got a corporate career, but you've always been a creative, and in your heart of hearts, you really want to test whether you could be that graphic designer and live a completely different life than the one you've led to date. So rather than spending 60 days going all in on becoming a graphic designer, can you freelance? Can you start something on the side to test that opportunity? Not to replace your current income. We're not leaping from the pot to the flames here, because the thing about mid-career transitions is that you already know what it costs when something doesn't work. You've been around the block long enough, which means you've got a very reasonable instinct not to get it wrong again. Small tests honor that instinct. They let you gather real data and think and reflect on how you're experiencing that work. Because from the outside looking in, we've got a lot of assumptions and perceptions about that particular opportunity, that organization, that new career path that you'd like to transition into. And you've got to test those assumptions. But there's another reason I like small tests. They don't make the decision for you. They help you discover what you're willing to put yourself behind. And eventually, you may reach a point where the evidence doesn't produce a clear winner. The freelance work is exciting but financially uncertain. The safe job is stable but less meaningful. Retraining is intellectually stimulating but expensive and disruptive. You gather the information, you run the experiment, you calm the nervous system, and then you have the realization. You want to create space for more creativity in your life. You don't want to be a graphic designer full time, but it doesn't mean giving up on your current role in your current career. Sometimes in working through what you think of as a decision, you realize the question is a different one than the one you set out wanting to ask. So one of the things about career decisions is that there may be something inside you that tells you you don't make good career decisions. And that's what we call a dysfunctional belief. Because maybe one time you chose a role and your gut told you not to go for it because you knew of the director and they were getting some red flags, but you completely ignored them and you took that role. And it was everything your gut told you it was going to be. Absolutely toxic. And that led to you going through a pretty rough patch. That role sucked your self-confidence and self-worth and left you not only feeling like you had de-skilled yourself, but actually you stopped trusting yourself. And you've been beating yourself up about this ever since. The challenge in mid-career transitions isn't not enough information to make a decision. It's often too much information, too many opinions from too many people, too many frameworks, and a brain that is so overwhelmed. You already know more than you think. You know what drains you. You know what lights something up inside you, even if it's just briefly. And you know what you're good at, even if you've been trained to minimize it in your current role. And sometimes after all that information, there still won't be that little green tick beside that option saying, this one. And that's okay, because some choices are genuinely hard, not because you haven't researched enough, not because you haven't found the right career coach, but because you're choosing between two lives that each have something worth wanting. The goal isn't to make a perfect decision. The goal is to make a good enough decision with enough clarity and enough agency to allow you to take a step, because the step is where the decision becomes real. So now I'm keen to hear from you. Are you trying to find the right answer, or are you deciding what you're willing to stand for? Tell me in the comments below. And if you know of someone who's in the middle of this right now, the uncertain, messy middle, send this to someone who needs to hear this today. Thanks for joining us on Career Jam. Don't forget to spread it like the jam.